For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace.
Well, thank you for joining us today. This is Viewpoints podcast, and I'm your host, Jordan Voles, and I'm here with Dr. John Gerlach. How you doing, John?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing good. It's getting cold. We're in the Christmas season. It's been good.
It's good.
But we're excited to start this new series, and today we're going to be talking about how Jesus is our wonderful counselor. And so, John, let's just dive right in.
Yeah, I think when it talks about in Isaiah 9:6 about Jesus is our wonderful counselor, I think that's a great thing to kind of unpack and talk about a little bit. And I think the big difference in the idea of Jesus being a counselor compared to a human counselor is the idea of that Jesus is a whole lot more directive. He's a lot more, hey, here's the answer. Mm-hmm. You know, a counselor's going to be, hey, how do you feel about that? Right. Or, try to explore. Well, Jesus already knows, so it's like, let me just tell you the path.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I think some people want to be those kind of counselors where they go, let me just tell you what you're supposed to do. You don't need to tell me anything. Let me just tell you. But this is where Jesus has all wisdom. I mean, I think that's the big piece of that is that Jesus has all wisdom. So when you come to Jesus and say, I got a problem, he's going to give you godly, biblical, obviously, wisdom that gets us on the right path. Mm-hmm. So, it's trying to figure out our problems. It's trying to figure out what does God want us to do. And so one kind of counselor that he is that it's very directive, and it means, here's the path, follow this truth, there you go. And it's kind of like, now it's up to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into what kind of counselor Jesus is. And there's also some key questions that we can ask and talk about. Like you said, there's a huge difference between meeting with someone face to face and then meeting with, talking with Jesus. And that could be a little bit difficult too, because, that's more of a prayer life situation. Right. So what would you say to the listener? Like, what are some of those key questions that we should be asking in those quiet times or when you're talking to him?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think one of the prayers that we should pray is to go, Jesus, show me what I need to see. Mm-hmm. Show me what I don't know. Show me my heart. Show me where I need to grow. Show me how I need to deal with this. I mean, I kind of in the blog talk a little bit about an example of somebody. I remember I've had this happen several times over the years where somebody comes to me and goes, can I talk to you about this? I am angry all the time.
Yeah.
Well, lots of times what you've got to do is you got to get below the surface on that and to go, okay, well, don't be angry, think good thoughts. I mean, that would be kind of a surface level discussion. But I think there's always going to be a deeper and many times spiritual level that you got to get to with somebody. Like, why are you angry? Mm-hmm. What's causing this anger? Is it, frustration? Is it hurt? Is it unforgiveness? What is it? So a big thing is to go, okay, what's the real problem? Not how maybe the problem is showing itself, but what's the real problem?
Would you say that's a good place to start?
Yeah, I think that's the perfect place to start is to go, here's what I'm seeing. I mean, it's kind of like medical. You kind of go, well, I've got this pain. So it's over here, it's on my big toe. Okay, well, what's happened? What could be causing that? The pain is just to get your attention, honestly, of what's really going on. And sometimes like stuff like the anger or whatever else, anxiety maybe that has gone from 0 to 60 or whatever. It'll be all kind of things. And so, but what's the real problem? Yeah. What is the real problem? And sometimes we got to go, Jesus is my wonderful counselor. Show me the real deal of what's going on. And sometimes you've got to go several layers to figure that out.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of people that are just kind of scared to admit what the problem is.
Right.
I mean, I know we see that every day with people. It's like,
so what do you think? Okay, give me your thoughts on that. What would be some of the reasons, Pete? What's the reasons for that? Why do you think what you've seen? What's the holdback on people?
well, I think it's what you preach about a lot on Sunday and it's one of our core values is that for some reason it's hard to be authentic in this world, and when I say authentic, to be real with who you are, especially a lot of times, like my nature too is just to like hide and like not really express what I'm feeling or the trials that we're going through. And I think that's one of the reasons. And society will tell you that you're weak if you express a lot of times. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. In my personal opinion, you might have seen some different, but speaking with friends, we're afraid to kind of let that go. It might vary from gender roles too, like men and women might be different in that, but yeah.
And I think those are all definitely in the mix. I think the real big one is, I think, when people think somebody's going to walk away. If you knew me,
it's good too.
You're turning your back on me. Yeah. If you really knew me, if you really knew I'm struggling with this, well, they're going to reject me. They won't care about me anymore. For some people, that's a big deal.
That is a big one.
Because they don't want that to happen.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, when we've identified the problem, what do you think the next step is? What do you think Jesus has to say about the problem once we've identified that?
Well, I think it comes back to that whole idea of good counselor again. Okay, so Jesus, what's the path? What does your word say? What do you say? Sometimes he'll reveal that through somebody, this godly, person that you look up to, or that a good friend that could kind of talk to you about that, and it's going to have a godly perspective. So sometimes it's the Bible, sometimes it's through prayer, sometimes it's through another person, I think, and even other ways that, so show me what I need to do. What's my next step on this? Where do I need to go with it? And let me know the path. And I think Jesus wants to do that as a wonderful counselor, to make that clear. And if we look, I think we'll find it.
Absolutely. I actually take back what I said. I don't know if maybe identifying is the hardest thing. I think maybe it's after we've admitted what the problem is, and then we've heard, or we had good counseling to say, here's the next steps, and then implementing that. Would you say? Like the implementation of that would maybe be the hardest thing, which is our last question of going. After we've seen that stuff and know what we have to do, are we willing to do what Jesus says?
Yeah, I think that's the next step of, are we willing to do it? And I think you're exactly right. I mean, I've talked to people. I know stories with people that they, like I'll tell you some of the stories. I went to this counselor and they told me to do ABC. And I came back the next time I saw them and told them what was going on. They said, do ABC. And then I came back the third time and they said, well, you need to do ABC. You're not doing A, B, and C.
Right.
But you still want to come in and talk about the problem.
Right.
But it's A, B, or C. You've got to do it. You've got to take action. I love this statement that I read, which is a statement that says, if God can't change your problems without changing you. And I really like that. Is so what do we need to do? And I think people run from that pretty hard. They don't want the pain of that. I mean, because it's painful sometimes to go, this is who I am and I got to deal with this. Or, it's just uncomfortable. And they just dodge it. They just don't want to do it. I think that's the hardest part is, okay, now I know what the problem is. I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to do it.
Absolutely.
I just don't want to do it.
Well, John, anything that you would like to leave the listener with? I mean, I know that we could really kind of stay on this subject for a while, and I pray that the listener is tuning in every week to hear these, because again, we're going to be going through like these names of God, who He is. Right. But I think that will help anyone that actually needs that counseling from Him. Yeah. But anything that you would like to leave?
I think a couple things. I think one thing, just counseling in general, I really truly think that through at the church and in other resources, I think people need to go, if they're stuck and they just need practical help, they need to talk to somebody. Okay. Jesus is where we start, but then Jesus could, the plan might be go talk to a human counselor.
Yeah,
I mean, that
absolutely.
might be the plan. And I think for some people, that's exactly what they need to do. There's some things that are unresolved. And I think one thing during the holidays, that's going to trigger.
Yeah.
I had this time, and kind of close with this thought, but I had this time during Thanksgiving where I just kind of prayed for probably, I don't know how many it was, 4 or 5 people, because I knew this is going to be a hard Thanksgiving. This is going to trigger that issue that they've kind of buried, or maybe that person's not going to, first Thanksgiving, they're not going to be with them, or whatever issue they were facing. And I was like, I'm praying for them because that's going to bring it up. And I do think the holidays is the time that a lot of this stuff gets brought up.
Right.
Family issues, etc. That's just going to be where it happens because of the holidays. So if someone's got an unresolved something or whatever it could be, it's going to be a good time to say, how do we deal with it? So
Yeah.
I heard you had some excellent premarital counseling in your life that was just life-changing.
I did.
And so, I think everybody should do that too. If they're getting
Absolutely.
married, I think that's a great, great thing. And it was excellent. Yeah.
I did. We had some great stuff. And honestly, I know we joke about it, but I was talking to a buddy of mine from Odessa, and it was almost like it was taboo when he was
really?
like,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, we're going through, premarital and at our church, we're going through counseling. And he was like, oh my God, like that's amazing. Like, I don't know of anyone really doing that anymore. So it was actually like shocking to hear like
Interesting.
us doing the proper steps. And it's like, oh, that's foreign almost. But he was very proud. Like he was like, wow, that's awesome. And I would say it's helped us tremendously, going forward in that. But yes, thank you, John, for sharing that and that insight. And I know that the church has offered too a lot of ways to help people.
Yeah.
We know a lot of counselors.
Exactly.
So feel free to reach out to the church or call the office if you need that help. But again, John, thank you so much. I know that we have some special guests coming up in later weeks, and it's going to be a good time. Awesome. So listener, God bless.